Republicans in Washington voted to remove the Republican Speaker of the House, and it likely wouldn't have happened without the support of a conservative from Colorado, but maybe not the one you might think. Tomorrow, phones across the U.S. will light up with an emergency alert. No, there's no actual emergency. Yes, it is still important. For years, Colorado's history of mistreating Indigenous families and students remained hidden. Today, a moment of reckoning. The Rockies put on a historic season this year. Historically bad. And yet, Coors Field is full.
But I do feel that, having a 100-loss season, that should do something to the attendance. But hey, it's downtown Denver, so people are going.
It looks like a lot of you enjoy watching some bad baseball. Terrible losses, great attendance tonight on Next. Republican Congressman Ken Buck is as conservative as they come in Colorado. Yet today, Democrats are thanking him for his help ousting Republican Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy. McCarthy becomes the first speaker in history to be voted out of his leadership role, and it wouldn't have happened without the infighting in his own party. Ken Buck was one of just 8 House Republicans to support Florida Republican Matt Gaetz' motion to vacate the Speaker. They joined all 208 Democrats present in voting to remove McCarthy. Buck has been critical of McCarthy throughout the recent budget process when McCarthy struggled to negotiate a budget deal with hard-right holdouts. Buck said he voted to oust McCarthy because he hasn't kept his promises to lower the national debt. Yesterday on MSNBC, he said McCarthy couldn't be trusted.
Kevin promised a number to conservatives when he was running for Speaker, $1.47 trillion. Then when he negotiated with President Biden the debt ceiling deal, he promised President Biden a $1.66 trillion deal. He has promised, for example, he criticized Nancy Pelosi for not holding a vote on an impeachment inquiry. And then he promised he would hold a vote on an impeachment inquiry. And then he announced an impeachment inquiry. He cannot be trusted.
Another surprise from Colorado Republicans, Lauren Boebert, who notoriously held up the vote to give McCarthy the gavel in the first place, voted today for McCarthy to keep his seat. She says it's time to focus on the budget instead. This has been a possibility ever since McCarthy ran for Speaker a couple months ago and negotiated with his critics to change House rules and allow any single lawmaker to file the motion to vacate. Today, he criticized that process.
You need 218. Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one.
So what happens now? We're still really not totally sure. McCarthy ally Patrick McHenry will serve as Speaker until a new leader is elected. We're told at this point Republicans are aiming to hold an election next Wednesday. McCarthy said tonight that he will not run again for Speaker. Today, the doctor who performed an autopsy on Elijah McLean told prosecutors McLean's death was a result of being injected with ketamine. It could be a crucial testimony for the Aurora police officers currently on trial who claim they followed policy when they restrained McLean in 2019. Officers Randy Rodema and Jason Rosenblatt stopped McLean after reports that he was acting suspiciously, but the 23-year-old was doing nothing wrong. Dr. Stephen Sina, a forensic pathologist who performs autopsies for Adams County, he initially concluded McLean's death was undetermined. The cause was undetermined. Then nearly 2 years later, citing additional evidence, he amended that decision, ruling that an injection of the sedative ketamine killed McLean. He explained that decision to jurors today and said the officers who held McLean in a neck hold didn't inflict serious injuries.
I know from looking at the video that he received the ketamine, and a minute or two later, he's agonally breathing. And then he went into cardiac arrest and followed a downhill spiral until he died. I'm sure of that. I have no physical injuries that I can see at autopsy, neck injuries, broken ribs, closed head trauma that I can attribute to the police inflicting upon him.
The 2 officers face charges of reckless manslaughter and second-degree assault in connection with McLean's death. But their attorneys have placed the blame on the paramedics who injected McLean with ketamine. Those 2 paramedics are set to go on trial in late November. Don't say that we did not warn you. At 12:20 tomorrow, on the dot, your phone is going to blast that awful, annoying tone, that emergency alert that we're used to getting. This time it won't be for a missing kid or an evacuation warning. It'll be a test from the federal government. Our Steve Stager spent the last year and a half reporting on this system, so hey, we figure he's best to explain it.
Think you can opt out of tomorrow's emergency alert test? Think again. The only way to not have your phone blare at 12:20 on Wednesday is to shut it off or turn off cell service. By law, anytime the federal government sends a wireless emergency alert, or WIA, carriers are ordered to deliver it.
It exists because in federal regulations and federal code, there has to be a system that the President of the United States can send or notify the American public about any kind of messaging, emergency messaging.
After Hurricane Katrina, the federal government decided to allow local communities to use that wireless emergency alert system to target phones in a specific area about emergencies there. You may know WIA through its most common use, Amber Alerts, or the message all of Colorado got last week when police in Colorado Springs sent an alert to every phone statewide about the suspect who hit and killed a parole officer.
You don't have to do anything to your cell phone. You don't have to go to any websites to enroll to get these alerts.
This system can be used to target smaller areas like neighborhoods under evacuation. But tomorrow's test will target all of the United States. FEMA says the test will help them determine how the system is functioning. What it won't help are local emergency managers who want to know more about how the alerts work in their areas.
So when the phone companies broadcast this signal to their consumers, they're not required to track whether or not the consumer received the message. There's no feedback loop. So there's no way to understand who got the message and who didn't.
Our investigation over the last year and a half found problems with messages overshooting their boundaries, causing issues, leaving emergency managers begging the feds to force cell phone companies to make the system more reliable.
And certainly if you had a cell phone and your carrier didn't allow you to call 911, that would be a problem for you. I'm sure there'd be some visceral reaction to that. So we want literally the same level of performance on our warning side of the house.
So emergency managers also don't know how many people have turned their alerts on their phones off because of some of those problems in the past. Again, you won't be able to avoid tomorrow's test by opting out of the alerts on your phone. The only thing you will do if you opt out is cut yourself off from the first responders who are trying to get your attention to tell you that your life is in danger. I will yell that from the mountaintops, Mark, that if you turn your messages off, that folks don't have a way to get in touch with you if something is coming your way. I don't understand why people do it. I understand the messages are annoying. Keep them on.
But quite literally, it's a matter of life and death in
It
some
is.
situation.
Absolutely.
We all know that sound, that just awful ringing sound that you get from your phone. It startles you and immediately. Anytime that so many people, that quite literally anybody with a phone gets these, you're going to have conspiracy theories. Something's going on. Something's wrong. Nothing's wrong here. This is just a test.
What's wild is I've already heard FEMA trying to dispel some of those myths. One is that this is going to activate a microchip that was injected into you when you got the vaccine. Obviously, that's bat guano. Can't say the real word on TV. But, you know,
that's crazy.
This is a system that has existed for a long time, and they are required to do this test at least once every 3 years. Last time they did it was 2021. This time it's going to go to all phones just to make sure the system's up and running and working. And hopefully if they find any problems with carriers, they'll sort it out. But no, it's not going to activate your microchip. You got to go to your vet for that.
No.
Yeah.
Steve stated with the warning, before the warning,
Yep.
that you'll get tomorrow. A Colorado baker at the center of multiple discrimination cases is headed to the state's Supreme Court. It's the first challenge to the state's anti-discrimination law since the U.S. Supreme Court carved out an exception to this law earlier this year. You might remember Jack Phillips, the owner of Master's Piece Cake Shop in Lakewood. He won a partial Supreme Court victory in 2018 after he refused to make a wedding cake for a gay couple. Then he went back to court after refusing to bake a cake celebrating a customer's gender transition. Phillips claims being forced to make the cake would violate his First Amendment rights, but the State Court of Appeals ruled Phillips violated the state's anti-discrimination law. Now the Colorado Supreme Court says it will take up the case themselves. Phillips' legal team is the same legal advocacy group that represented Lori Smith, a Colorado website designer who said she didn't want to make wedding websites for same-sex couples. The Supreme Court sided with Smith, saying Smith ran an expressive business and couldn't be forced into platforming beliefs that she didn't agree with. Colorado's been grappling with a grim legacy when it comes to Indigenous people, and today 139 pages of it have been released to the public. Dia de los Muertos is all about remembrance of loved ones of generations past. Ahead of the holiday, 2 generations of artists have teamed up to keep that Colorado tradition alive.
We've been season ticket holders since day one. We're going to go no matter what.
It's going to take a whole lot more than 100 losses to clear out Coors Field. A word from the faithful fans who keep showing up. Colorado has struggled to reconcile its grim history when it comes to the treatment of Native Americans. And a new report by History Colorado details some serious abuses by the state's 2 most prominent assimilation schools, meant to erase Indigenous heritage and culture. The state legislature tasked History Colorado with investigating the traumas inflicted on Indigenous children and documenting the deaths that occurred at both Indian boarding schools in Fort Lewis and Grand Junction. Through a combination of combing through historical records and technology that identified burials without actually digging up the ground, it identified 65 Native student deaths between the 2 spots. The victims at Fort Lewis ranged in age from 5 years old to 22. The number of deaths there is nearly 3 times more than what was reported to the feds when the school was opened in the 19th and 20th centuries. The report also details a history of sexual and physical abuse. The report notes that, quote, there is no threshold where the death of children at boarding schools is acceptable. Every single death was a tragedy to the families who lost their loved ones. In a letter released to the community today, Fort Lewis College said confronting the school's history requires a focus on healing as well as taking accountability. Today, over a third of the college's student population is Indigenous. Dia de los Muertos is a traditional Mexican celebration of loved ones who are no longer living. Altars help people connect with people who are from past generations. We found one at History Colorado that links generations of artists.
This, celebration of life really helps us remember that we're all kind of on this universal journey. Yeah, my name is Cal Duran, and I'm a local artist and educator from Colorado. I collaborated with Rita Flores Wallace to create the Dia de los Muertos at the Colorado History Museum. Dia de los Muertos is a celebration of death of our loved ones that have passed on. Rita Wallace Flores kind of was the pioneer. She is from Soltero, Mexico, and she brought kind of her teachings to Colorado. I was really lucky to get to be with her. She's in her 90s now, and I visited Rita every week prior to this altar, and we built Ojo de Dios, which are weavings. They're God's eyes. And it was really nice to bring her work out and get to really have the community celebrate her artwork. I think our elders are really important in that way. We have to kind of, cherish their knowledge and get to spend time with them when we can. So we might as well, remember. That's really what it's about, is remembering the memories, our legacies. And that's really how we get to live on, through the memories and through other people, by telling our stories. So.
The altar at History Colorado is a community altar. Everyone is invited to add a photo or remembrance of their loved ones. Other community altars can be found in museums in Trinidad, Fort Garland, and Pueblo. I want to turn now to weather. Danielle Grant. Danielle, it feels like summer still today, but a change is coming.
Yes.
We're just having to wait a little bit longer for it than we're used to, perhaps.
Yeah, you know what? We had the sunshine out there, so that certainly helped. But numbers were actually in the lower 70s this afternoon, which is pretty seasonal for this time of the year. As we look across downtown Denver and beyond, still a few clouds up into the high country. Otherwise, low 70s this afternoon across the urban corridor. A little warmer off to the eastern plains, feeling more like summer, definitely around Lamar at 82 with 40s and 50s for highs. Up in the mountains, those storms that rumbled through the metro area pretty much this time last night, now impacting Nebraska and Kansas, bringing them severe thunderstorms. As we zoom back in here to the city, we're looking good with just a few clouds out there and a couple of lingering snow showers up in the mountains. A very weak disturbance is just going to clip northern Colorado overnight, bringing the mountain areas once again a little light dusting. For us, we'll be looking at some cloud cover early tomorrow, possibly 1 or 2 light showers just to the north of Fort Collins, but as as the afternoon wears on, the skies start to clear yet again. Tomorrow, temperatures just a couple of degrees cooler than where we're at today. Highs sitting in the upper 60s, low 70s in the metro area. But look at all of that afternoon sunshine. We're looking good. Numbers cooling off to the eastern plains, though, low 70s in Burlington and Lamar, with 50s mainly up in the mountains. We stay in the 60s all week long, just down to 60 on the nose on Friday, but then another warm up, feeling more like summer for the weekend and into early next week.
I think the thing that keeps it going is a beautiful Coors Field and the visiting teams. I really believe that.
The Rockies' historic losses this season aren't necessarily bad for business. No matter what draws people to Coors Field, they're still coming. Hear me out. The Colorado Rockies are in the middle of a bit of an experiment right now. They're trying to find out whether the worst season in franchise history will stop fans from coming to the games. Spoiler alert, the party deck is still full.
End this game already.
If these walls could talk,
Here comes
they'd speak of the crowded rock pile, the long lines for a hot dog,
It's a 3-2 final in game 162.
and a sold-out party deck, all in the middle of the first 100-loss season.
Get ready for 2024.
Absolutely, yeah, one of the best stadiums I've ever been to.
Even at a baseball stadium, filling these seats might not really be about the baseball. Gordon Pustina still comes to the games, win or lose.
It's crazy the amount of people, like even on a weekday, like I've been here like on a Tuesday afternoon and just seeing the stadium packed.
More than 2.6 million people filled these seats this year to watch the Rockies' worst season ever. That ranks 21st for total attendance out of the 31 years the Rockies have been a team. Even with one of the worst records in baseball, the average game attendance was still 14th highest this year in the MLB out of 30 teams.
I do feel that, having a 100-loss season, that should do something to the attendance.
How you guys doing?
At the National Ballpark Museum across the street from Coors Field,
We're going to go no matter what.
Bruce Hellerstein has the perfect view of the fans.
I think the thing that keeps it going is a beautiful Coors Field and the visiting teams. I really believe that.
Inside, he's got a scoreboard from Wrigley, Franks from Fenway, and people from all over the country.
The first thing I ask people when we knock on the door, where are you from? And 90% are from out of town. Thanks for coming.
Bruce goes to the games for the baseball. Up on the party deck, they put the Coors in Coors Field.
It's a great atmosphere. You can pretty much see like everything that's going on. I mean, yeah, you can't really see the pitching that well.
This year, that might be for the better.
That is probably true. Yeah.
So here's your baseball history here. Even when the Rockies made it to the World Series back in 2007, their average game attendance was 4,000 people less than this 100-loss season now in 2023. Go figure. Maybe it's not about the baseball. We'll see. Your feedback and an anti-theft sign that takes its job very seriously. Next. It's a sign to keep the sign thieves away, and yeah, other thieves, but mostly just the sign ones. Don't steal this sign, specifically this one. Meredith spotted this anti-theft sign in Waterton Canyon, telling folks not to be an easy target for people looking to steal their stuff. They take safety so seriously, even the sign is locked down. If you see a sign that catches your attention, email it to us next on 9news.com. Some feedback today from Lisa just in the last couple of minutes. She says the ballpark is full and will continue to be, with fans from opposing teams. Hey, that's not the worst thing in the world. It creates a great atmosphere. You just have to ask the person in front of you to, politely take off their Cubs hat or Cardinals hat or Dodgers hat and replace it with a Rockies hat.